You're caught in a trap, but it's completely invisible. It's an emotional snare that quietly influences millions of people every single day, yet leaves absolutely zero fingerprints behind. Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to decode something you've probably felt really deeply, but maybe never fully understood. We are exploring the hidden psychology of silent guilt manipulation. And look, we're not talking about those loud, explosive arguments or the obvious conflicts that rattle the walls of a relationship. No, this is about something way more insidious. It's about how certain people can make you feel completely, overwhelmingly guilty without directly blaming, criticizing, or even arguing with you at all. It's a wildly powerful psychological phenomenon, and it operates entirely in the shadows. But by the end of our time today, you're going to see these invisible strings for exactly what they are. And more importantly, you'll know how to cut them.
So think back to a time when someone suddenly got quiet. You know the feeling, right? The air in the room just grows incredibly heavy. They give you this chillingly cold, "it's fine," and suddenly you feel like the absolute worst person on earth. And that's without a single genuine word of criticism actually being spoken. Have you ever caught yourself apologizing just to break that suffocating tension, even when you hadn't been accused of anything? Maybe they just avoided eye contact and aggressively washed the dishes, clinking the plates together just a little too loudly. Yet somehow, you walked away carrying the weight of that entire interaction. The strangest part is they never raised their voice. They didn't demand an apology, but you still felt entirely responsible. I just want to validate that feeling for you right now. This isn't just your imagination playing tricks on you. The tricky thing is, you often don't even realize this manipulation is happening until you've already started twisting your own behavior into knots just to make the other person happy. This invisible trap relies entirely on three really quiet weapons: silence, emotional distance, and subtle victim cues. Certain individuals know exactly how to trigger your deep-seated guilt using these whisper-quiet signals, and your brain instinctively, almost helplessly, reacts to them. The true danger here is the subtlety. Because there's no obvious outward attack, your emotional defenses just stay completely down. You start overthinking every tiny interaction, tiptoeing on eggshells around their fluctuating moods, and doing all the emotional heavy lifting just to restore a harmony that they quietly, deliberately disrupted.
Now, have you ever wondered why silence can actually feel so much more painful than harsh words? Well, it all comes down to how our brains are wired. 10,000 years ago, our survival depended entirely on being accepted by our tribe. Being emotionally rejected, ignored, or cast out, that wasn't just some awkward social faux pas, it was a literal death sentence. You'd freeze or starve. Fast forward to today, and here is a slightly terrifying reality. Your brain is still running that exact same ancient survival software. When someone suddenly becomes cold or leaves you on red for hours, your brain treats that emotional distance like a saber-toothed tiger is circling your camp. It senses a literal threat to your survival.
So when someone withdraws affection, your brain instinctively hits the panic button. It frantically searches for a reason for this sudden isolation, and almost without fail, it blames you. This brings us to a really fascinating psychological mechanism called self-attribution. Because your ancient brain views a sudden lack of connection as a five-alarm crisis, it desperately scrambles to find a cause so it can fix the problem right now. And more often than not, it points the finger straight inward. Even with incredibly little evidence, your mind automatically assumes you are the root cause of the other person's bad mood. You basically become the villain in a story you didn't even write.
And you know, this self-attribution instinct gets massively amplified by the blueprints of your past. If your childhood taught you that keeping the peace is entirely your personal responsibility, you become wired to seek approval and avoid conflict at absolutely all costs. If you were a kid who was only praised when you kept the adults around you comfortable, you probably internalized a really dangerous equation: love equals keeping others happy. So to your adult brain, a simple sigh or delayed text reply isn't just a minor annoyance, it's a full-blown emotional emergency that you have to fix immediately. You've literally been conditioned to believe that if the room isn't peaceful, you must have done something to disturb it.
The real danger here isn't just the guilt itself. It's the fact that you're doing all the heavy lifting for them. People who use silent guilt manipulation, whether they're doing it intentionally to control you or entirely subconsciously as a defense mechanism, rely on these shadow tactics. They get their needs met without ever having to ask openly. They rely on you to fill in the blanks with your own anxiety. So let's pull back the curtain on exactly how this shadow play works. We're going to walk through 5 distinct, escalating tactics so you can finally spot them in the wild the absolute second they happened.
Tactic number 1 starts with silent disappointment. The manipulator creates a sudden void. They don't tell you what's wrong, they just stop smiling. They start giving you clipped, one-word answers. They become completely emotionally unavailable. And leaving that agonizing void of uncertainty is the real weapon here. You might have absolutely no idea what changed over the last 20 minutes, but that empty emotional space creates so much internal anxiety that your brain just rushes in to fill the silence with self-blame. You start mentally cataloging every single thing you said or did that day, desperately trying to make sense of the sudden chill in the room.
Then comes tactic 2, playing the invisible victim. You might hear something like, "Don't worry about me, it's okay, I'll handle it." On the surface, sure, it sounds like fierce independence or quiet martyrdom, but emotionally, it's expertly paired with a deep, suffering sigh or this devastatingly sad expression. Instead of just directly asking for your support or communicating their needs, they use these subtle signals to quietly and heavily drop the emotional responsibility right onto your shoulders. Almost instantly, you find yourself wondering if you've been selfish, and you rush to their aid even though they never actually asked for it.
This void often escalates into tactic 3, a sudden, chilling withdrawal of warmth. It's a stark, terrifying contrast to how they normally behave. A once friendly person just suddenly transforms. Warm compliments completely vanish. Text messages lose all their emojis, the punctuation gets super formal, and the replies get incredibly brief. Every single interaction suddenly feels forced and heavy. Because your brain interprets this sudden loss of connection as a survival crisis, you start giving in to their unspoken wishes. You start over-apologizing, bending over backwards, doing whatever it takes simply to restore the warmth they so abruptly took away. Next, they deploy tactic 4, passive guilt statements. They won't explicitly accuse you of a single thing, but they'll expertly imply you've completely failed them. Picture a heavy sigh followed by, "I guess I'm just not important," or "maybe I expected too much." See, they aren't saying you did this specific thing wrong. They're making these broad, sweeping, theatrical statements about their own disappointment that are perfectly designed to trigger your self-attribution instinct. Your mind instantly connects the dots, doing all the toxic math for them, and suddenly you're carrying a massive load of guilt that they never openly or fairly assigned to you. Ultimately, this builds to tactic 5, the most powerful weapon of all, behavioral conditioning. They selectively return their warmth and affection only when you agree with them or do exactly what they want. In those moments, they are the most wonderful, affectionate, emotionally available person in the world. But the absolute second you disagree, or heaven forbid, try to set a boundary and stand up for yourself, that warmth vanishes into thin air. It is yanked away. Over time, your brain learns a very dangerous, subconscious lesson about what it takes to survive this relationship. And that means you are now caught in the ultimate trap, constantly weighing your options on a rigged scale. Compliance brings love. Independence brings heavy, suffocating guilt. When you're caught in this cycle, your autonomy slowly erodes away. You are no longer living your life based on your own values, your own desires, or what actually feels right to you. You're simply navigating a minefield, making decisions entirely focused on keeping the other person comfortable, just hoping to prevent them from deploying those silent weapons against you. But here is the absolute most important truth you can take away from this explainer today. Guilt is just an emotion. It is a feeling. It is not a fact. Feeling guilty doesn't automatically mean you've actually done something wrong. It simply means someone has learned how to pull your emotional strings without making a sound. Silent guilt manipulation is so wildly effective precisely because there are no dramatic arguments to point to. It masterfully convinces you to constantly question yourself instead of questioning the profoundly unhealthy situation you're sitting in. Healthy relationships communicate openly, guys. They never expect you to read minds or decipher sighs. So the next time the silence feels heavy, I want you to pause, mentally break the glass of the illusion. I actually highly recommend writing these 2 questions down on your phone so you have them ready. Number 1, did I actually do something wrong? Look for concrete, objective evidence. Did you break a promise? Did you insult them? If there's no concrete evidence, ask the second question. Am I just reacting to someone else's unspoken expectations? Taking just a brief moment of reflection forces your brain out of its frantic survival mode and back into logical processing. It stops the cycle of manufactured guilt right in its tracks.
Here's a surprising truth to keep in mind. Manipulators rarely target selfish people. They specifically target the highly empathetic. Empathy is a wonderful, beautiful strength, but you really have to realize you can care deeply about others without absorbing every single emotion they throw your way. Real emotional intelligence is recognizing the profound difference between genuine accountability, like when you actually made a mistake, and artificial emotional pressure. You do not have to carry a weight that doesn't belong to you. When you recognize manufactured guilt, you finally stop fearing the silence.
Now, it absolutely takes practice to unlearn these deep-rooted responses, especially if you've spent a lifetime trying to keep the peace. but awareness is always the very first step out of the trap. Once you can name the tactic, it loses its power over you. So, I want to leave you with a question to ponder long after this is over. Who in your life is controlling your actions right now without ever saying a single word? Really think about it. Thank you so much for joining me for today's explainer, and remember, always protect your peace.